October 26, 1942. Deep beneath the earth in China's Benxihu Colliery, over 1,500 men were about to face the most horrific death imaginable. What happened next would become the deadliest mining disaster in human history. It's Liaoning province, China. World War II is raging across the globe, and the Japanese have occupied this region of China. At the Benxihu Colliery, over 3,000 Chinese workers descend into the earth each day to extract coal for the war effort. These aren't volunteers, they're forced laborers working under brutal conditions with absolutely zero workplace protections. The mine itself is a maze of tunnels stretching deep underground, filled with highly explosive coal dust and methane gas. It's basically a giant bomb waiting for someone to light the fuse. And on this particular morning, someone did. Nobody knows exactly what sparked it. Maybe a lamp, maybe faulty electrical equipment, maybe just bad luck. But around 2:30 p.m., a massive gas and coal dust explosion ripped through the mine. The blast was so powerful it could be felt on the surface, and within minutes, fires were burning throughout the underground passages. But here's where the story takes a turn that's almost too horrific to believe. The Japanese authorities, who controlled the mine at the time, made a decision that would haunt history forever. Instead of launching an immediate rescue operation, they thought the best way to stop the fire was to seal the mine. Imagine being one of those miners. You've survived the initial explosion, you're injured, scared, desperately trying to find a way out, and then you hear the sound of machinery above. Not rescue equipment, but bulldozers sealing your tomb. The air starts getting thinner. The carbon monoxide from the fires begins filling every available space. For hours, maybe even days, these men slowly suffocated in complete darkness. Some left messages scratched into the mine walls. Others were found clustered together in groups, suggesting they spent their final moments trying to comfort each other. When rescue teams finally reopened the mine weeks later, they found 1,549 bodies. Many were so badly burned they couldn't be identified. It remains the deadliest coal mining disaster in human history. Fast forward to June 8, 1917, in Butte, Montana. America has just entered World War I. Copper demand is through the roof, and the Speculator mine is working around the clock to meet production quotas. Safety inspections were ignored, because efficiency was priority in wartime. The Speculator mine was aptly named. It was literally a gamble with death every time you went down. The mine shaft plunged 3,000 feet into the earth. And on this particular evening, a miner was working with a carbide lamp, essentially an open flame strapped to a forehead. Because what could possibly go wrong in a place filled with flammable materials? Around 11:45 p.m., the lamp ignited some insulation material lining the shaft. Within minutes, the entire mine became a towering inferno, with flames and toxic smoke racing through every tunnel and passage. The mine's design actually made it worse. It acted like a giant chimney, drawing the fire upward and spreading it to multiple levels. 410 miners were underground when the fire started. The lucky ones were near the main shaft and could escape immediately, but 168 others weren't so fortunate. Some of these miners survived for over 2 days in the depths of the mine, slowly running out of oxygen while rescue teams worked frantically above. They knew they were probably going to die, so they did what any of us might do. They wrote letters. One miner scratched into a timber beam. "We are ready to go. It is 3:25. We are all in good spirits. Gas is getting bad. Goodbye to all." Another wrote on a piece of cardboard. "Walter and Johnny are going to sleep. We are in the 2400 station. Please give this to Walter's wife. We are almost gone. It is now 3:30. These men weren't dying instantly. They were slowly suffocating, writing farewell messages to wives and children they would never see again, probably wondering if anyone would ever find their bodies. It became the deadliest hard rock mining disaster in US history. May 13th, 2014, Soma, Turkey. You would think by the 21st century we would have figured out this whole keeping miners alive thing, right? Well, prepare to be disappointed. The Aines coal mine had been operating for years, with what can only be described as cross your fingers and hope for the best approach to safety. Government inspectors had filed report after report, documenting dangerous conditions, inadequate ventilation, faulty electrical systems, insufficient fire safety measures. Management's response was basically, "Thanks for the feedback," and filed the reports in what I assume was a very expensive paper shredder. At 3 p.m., an electrical transformer exploded deep in the mine. The blast ignited a fire that spread rapidly through the mine's ventilation system, which, surprise surprise, wasn't designed to handle this kind of emergency. And here's the worst part. It happened during shift change, when mines have the highest number of workers underground, which means there were 787 people in the shaft at the time. The fire spread quickly, and with it came the silent killer, carbon monoxide. This colorless, odorless gas is a miner's worst nightmare. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it kills you slowly and painfully. Some miners started collapsing, and some managed to reach emergency stations, only to find that their rescue equipment either didn't work or wasn't properly maintained. 301 people died that day, most from carbon monoxide poisoning. September 16th, 1996, the Kinross gold mine in South Africa. This was during apartheid, so workers' rights were already about as protected as a snowball in hell. The mine stretched nearly 2,000 feet underground, so deep that if you dropped a coin from the surface, you would have time to make a sandwich before it hit bottom. The Kinross mine employed mostly black South African workers who did the most dangerous jobs for minimal pay, while white supervisors made safety decisions from comfortable offices above ground. It was a system designed to maximize profit while minimizing the value placed on certain human lives. On this particular day, maintenance workers were doing routine welding repairs in one of the tunnels. Routine welding in a mine lined with plastic. Someone had the brilliant idea to line underground mine tunnels with flammable plastic materials. This decision was made to save money that would now cost lives. The welding sparks ignited the plastic lining, and the fire spread through the mine, creating an inferno underground. But this wasn't just any fire. The burning plastic produced incredibly toxic fumes, including hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide. The tunnels filled with a deadly cocktail of gases that would kill you in minutes. Miners working in the affected areas didn't stand a chance. The toxic cloud moved through the mine like an invisible tsunami of death. Some workers tried to escape by running toward ventilation shafts, but the fumes were faster. 177 miners died, most from inhaling the toxic gases. 235 others were injured, many with permanent lung damage. Rescue teams found clusters of bodies in areas where miners had sought refuge, suggesting that even in their final moments, these men were trying to help each other survive. In November 2009, in the small village of Dompoase, Ghana, desperation drove a group of villagers to turn to illegal gold mining. Dozens of individual miners carved a hillside up like Swiss cheese, each digging their own tunnel hoping to find gold. Of course, they had no safety, no structural engineers or emergency protocols. They were just a bunch of local villagers with shovels, including 14 women. When you're choosing between potentially dying in a mine collapse and definitely watching your family starve, the math becomes pretty simple, even if it's terrifying. On this particular day, up to 30 miners were working the site when the inevitable happened. The entire hillside decided it had enough of being held together by hope and good intentions. The landslide hit like a tsunami of earth and rock, burying miners in tons of suffocating soil. As people run for their lives, the ground crumbles beneath their feet, and just when they're about to reach safety, a massive tree crashes down, blocking their way out. At least 18 people died. The rescue efforts were heartbreaking in their futility. This wasn't a professional mining operation with emergency equipment standing by. It was a remote village with limited resources, trying to dig out their neighbors with hand tools. Family members clawed at the earth with their bare hands, knowing that every minute meant less chance of finding survivors. Finally, let's visit October 14th, 1913, in the small Welsh mining town of Senghenydd. The universal Colliery was the heart of this community. Nearly every family had someone working in that mine. Here's the thing that makes the story even more tragic. This mine had already exploded once before, killing 82 men. So what did they do? Did they implement comprehensive safety reforms? Did they install better ventilation systems? Did they invest in gas detection equipment? Nope, they basically said, lightning doesn't strike twice, and kept digging. The mine was known for its dangerous level of methane gas, the stuff that makes underground spaces go boom. But proper ventilation system cost money, and gas detection equipment was expensive, so management decided to rely on the time-honored mining safety protocol of hope for the best. At 8:10 a.m. on October 14th, a spark, probably from faulty electrical equipment, ignited a pocket of methane gas deep in the mine. The blast was so powerful it could be felt on the surface, but underground it was absolute chaos. Miners were thrown against tunnel walls, others were buried under collapsed rock and timber. The lucky one died instantly. But the explosion was just the beginning. Fire erupted throughout the mine, consuming everything in its path. And then came the afterdump. Toxic gases followed in the wake of the explosion. These poisonous fumes made rescue operations nearly impossible. Miners who had escaped the blast itself slowly suffocated as they tried to find a way out through the maze of collapsed tunnels. Picture the scene on the surface. Word spread quickly through the small Welsh community that something terrible had happened at the colliery. Wives, children and parents rushed to the mine entrance, waiting desperately for news. Rescue teams worked frantically, but the conditions underground were hellish. Smoke, toxic gases, and unstable tunnel conditions made every step dangerous. When they finally reached some of the work areas, the scenes were undescribable. 439 miners and 1 rescuer died that day. It remains the worst mining disaster in United Kingdom history. The tragedy devastated Senghenydd. In a town of 4,000 people, nearly every family lost someone. Entire streets became rows of widows' houses. The local school had to completely restructure because so many children had lost their fathers. And if you enjoyed this video, you will also like this video about the most painful king deaths.